In the depths of the Caribbean Sea, beneath centuries of coral and sand, lie the remains of ships that once struck terror into the hearts of merchants across the world. These vessels belonged to men and women who chose a life outside the law, beyond the reach of kings and empires. Tonight, we'll explore the complete history of piracy, from its ancient origins to the golden age that still captures our imagination today. The first pirates of the Mediterranean. Piracy began almost as soon as humans started trading across water. The earliest recorded pirates operated in the Mediterranean Sea over 3,000 years ago. These ancient sea raiders understood a simple truth: where there was trade, there was opportunity. The Sea Peoples were among the first organized pirates in history. They appeared around 1200 BCE during the Bronze Age collapse. These mysterious groups attacked coastal settlements and merchant ships throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Egyptian records describe them as fierce warriors who came from the sea in great fleets. The Sea Peoples didn't just raid randomly. They had strategy. They targeted the busiest trade routes between Egypt, Greece, and Asia Minor. Egyptian pharaohs like Ramesses III fought major naval battles against them. But the Sea Peoples were persistent. They continued their raids for generations. Ancient Greek pirates were equally troublesome. They operated from hidden bases among the Greek islands. The rocky coastline provided perfect hiding spots. Pirates could strike quickly and disappear before authorities arrived. Greek city-states often struggled to protect their merchant vessels. Homer's Odyssey mentions piracy as a common occupation. When Odysseus meets strangers, they often ask if he's a pirate. This wasn't an insult. In ancient times, piracy was considered a legitimate profession by many. It required courage, skill, and leadership. Roman merchants faced constant pirate attacks. The Mediterranean was full of small islands and hidden coves. Pirates used these natural harbors as bases. They could repair ships, store treasure, and plan new raids. Roman trade suffered greatly from these attacks. Cilician pirates. Masters of the ancient seas. The most successful ancient pirates were the Cilicians. They controlled the southern coast of modern-day Turkey. By 100 BCE, they had built a massive pirate confederation. This wasn't just random raiding. The Cilicians created an organized pirate state. Cilician pirates had over 1,000 ships at their peak. They controlled major trade routes throughout the Mediterranean. Roman grain ships couldn't reach Italy safely. The price of food in Rome increased dramatically. The pirates were strangling the Roman economy. These pirates didn't just attack ships. They raided coastal towns and captured thousands of slaves. The slave markets of Delos sold over 10,000 people per day. Many of these slaves were captured by Cilician pirates. Slavery was their most profitable business. The Cilicians became so powerful, they challenged Rome itself. They raided Italian coastal towns. Roman senators were captured and held for ransom. The pirates even attacked the port of Ostia, near Rome. This was unthinkable humiliation for the world's greatest empire. Pompey the Great finally destroyed the Cilician pirates in 67 BC. He used 270 ships and 120,000 soldiers. The campaign lasted only 3 months. Pompey offered amnesty to pirates, who surrendered. Many accepted and became Roman citizens. Others continued fighting and were crucified. Early pirate tactics and organization. Ancient pirates developed tactics still used centuries later. They preferred fast, shallow-draft vessels. These ships could escape into coastal waters where larger warships couldn't follow. Speed was more important than firepower for ancient pirates. Pirates often disguised their ships as merchants. They would fly false flags and approach unsuspecting targets. Only at the last moment would they reveal their true intentions. This deception was crucial for successful attacks. Many ancient pirates worked in organized fleets. They had commanders, strategies, and rules. Pirates divided treasure according to established shares. Injured pirates received compensation. These practices showed sophisticated organization. Ancient pirates also used intelligence networks. They had contacts in major ports who provided information about valuable cargo. Corrupt officials often helped pirates in exchange for bribes. This inside information made raids much more successful. The concept of pirate codes began in ancient times. These weren't written laws but understood agreements. Pirates shared certain rules about dividing treasure, treating prisoners, and conducting raids. Breaking these codes could result in death or exile. Dark Ages and Viking raiders. The Viking Age begins. When the Roman Empire collapsed, new pirates emerged from the northern seas. The Vikings were perhaps the most feared sea raiders in history. They appeared suddenly in the late 8th century. Their first recorded raid was on Lindisfarne Monastery in 793 CE. Viking raids terrified medieval Europe. These Norse warriors seemed to appear from nowhere. They struck coastal settlements with devastating efficiency. Monasteries were favorite targets because they contained gold, silver, and valuable manuscripts. Vikings weren't just pirates. They were also traders, explorers, and settlers. The same ships that carried raiders also transported merchants and colonists. This dual nature made Vikings particularly successful. They could switch between raiding and trading as opportunities arose. Norse shipbuilding was revolutionary. Viking longships were shallow draft vessels that could navigate both seas and rivers. They could beach directly on shorelines without needing harbors. This allowed Vikings to strike far inland where no one expected sea raiders. Viking raids followed seasonal patterns. Spring and summer were raiding seasons. Warriors would return home for autumn harvest and winter. This cyclical pattern lasted for over 2 centuries. European coastal communities lived in constant fear during raiding season. Viking expansion and trade. Vikings established trade routes from Greenland to Constantinople. They weren't just destroying existing trade. They were creating new commercial networks. Viking merchants traded furs, amber, and slaves for silver, silk, and spices. The Vikings founded cities throughout Europe. Dublin, York, and Kiev all began as Viking settlements. These weren't just military outposts. They became major commercial centers. Vikings understood that trade was often more profitable than raiding. Viking expeditions reached North America around 1000 CE. Leif Erikson established a settlement in Newfoundland. This was 500 years before Columbus reached the Americas. Vikings were truly global explorers and traders. Byzantine emperors hired Vikings as elite guards. The Varangian Guard served the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople. These former raiders became the most trusted soldiers in the Byzantine army. This shows how Vikings could adapt to different roles. Vikings also established the first Russian state. Swedish Vikings called Rus founded settlements along Russian rivers. They created trade routes between Scandinavia and Byzantia. The name Russia comes from these Swedish Viking traders. Islamic pirates and the Barbary coast. While Vikings raided northern Europe, Islamic pirates controlled the Mediterranean's southern shores. The Barbary coast stretched from Morocco to Libya. This region became the center of Islamic piracy for over 800 years. Muslim pirates began operating shortly after the Islamic conquest of North Africa. They used fast galleys powered by enslaved rowers. These ships could outrun merchant vessels and escape from naval patrols. Islamic pirates developed sophisticated naval tactics. The city of Saleh in Morocco became a major pirate base. Pirates here were called Saleh rovers. They raided Christian ships throughout the Mediterranean and Atlantic. European coastal towns lived in constant fear of Saleh pirate raids. Islamic pirates had religious justification for their attacks. They saw raids against Christian ships as holy war. Captured Christians were either ransomed or sold into slavery. This religious element made Islamic piracy particularly persistent. Barbary pirates didn't limit themselves to the Mediterranean. They raided as far north as Ireland and Iceland. Entire coastal villages were sometimes captured and enslaved. The economic impact on European trade was enormous. Anglo-Saxon and Frisian pirates. The collapse of Roman rule left Britain vulnerable to new sea raiders. Anglo-Saxon and Frisian pirates attacked British coasts throughout the 5th and 6th centuries. These raids eventually led to the Anglo-Saxon settlement of England. Frisian pirates controlled the North Sea trade routes. They operated from the Frisian Islands off the Dutch coast. These islands provided perfect bases for raids against English and Frankish merchants. Frisian pirates were particularly skilled navigators. Anglo-Saxon pirates often combined raiding with settlement. They would attack a coastal area, then establish permanent settlements. This pattern repeated throughout eastern and southern England. Many English towns began as Anglo-Saxon pirate bases. The English Channel became a dangerous waterway during this period. Pirates from both sides attacked merchant ships. Trade between England and the continent nearly stopped at times. This piracy contributed to Europe's economic decline after Rome's fall. King Alfred the Great built the first English navy specifically to fight pirates. His ships patrolled the English coast and protected merchant vessels. This was one of the first organized anti-piracy campaigns in medieval Europe. Medieval piracy and the rise of maritime law. The Hanseatic League and Baltic pirates. The Baltic Sea became a major center of medieval trade and piracy. The Hanseatic League was a confederation of merchant cities that dominated Baltic commerce. Pirates constantly threatened their trade routes. This led to the first systematic anti-piracy efforts. Victual Brothers were the most famous Baltic pirates. They began as privateers hired by Stockholm to fight Denmark. When their contract ended, they continued raiding as pirates. The Victual Brothers controlled several Baltic islands and operated a virtual pirate state. Klaus Störtebeker was the most notorious Victual Brother. He led pirate fleets that terrorized Baltic shipping for over a decade. Legend says his ship had golden chains and silver anchors. When finally captured, he was executed in Hamburg in 14. The Victual Brothers had sophisticated organization. They elected their leaders democratically. They shared treasure according to agreed rules. Injured pirates received compensation. Their organization influenced later pirate codes in the Caribbean. Hanseatic cities eventually united to destroy the Victual Brothers. They built a joint fleet and besieged pirate strongholds. The campaign succeeded, but only after years of fighting. This cooperation showed how trade organizations could combat piracy effectively. English Channel pirates and the Cinque Ports. The English Channel was one of Europe's busiest waterways. It was also full of pirates. English, French, and Flemish pirates all attacked shipping in the Channel. The 100 Years' War made Channel piracy even worse. The Cinque Ports were 5 English coastal towns with special privileges. In exchange for providing ships for the Royal Navy, they could legally attack enemy vessels. This privateer system often led to pure piracy when wars ended. French pirates operated from bases in Normandy and Brittany. They attacked English merchant ships throughout the Channel and North Sea. English merchants demanded naval protection. The English crown struggled to provide adequate convoy escorts. John Hawley was one of the most successful English pirates. He operated from Dartmouth in Devon. Hawley attacked French, Spanish, and Flemish ships. He became wealthy enough to serve as mayor of Dartmouth. His career shows how piracy could lead to social advancement. Channel pirates often claimed they were privateers working for their king. They carried letters of marque that supposedly authorized their attacks. However, these documents were often forged or expired. The line between privateering and piracy was frequently blurred. Mediterranean piracy and the Crusades. The Crusades created new opportunities for Mediterranean pirates. Thousands of ships carried pilgrims and supplies to the Holy Land. These vessels were attractive targets for both Christian and Muslim pirates. Italian city-states like Venice, Genoa, and Pisa became major naval powers during the Crusades. Their ships protected Christian pilgrims and merchants. However, these same cities also engaged in piracy against each other when it suited their interests. The Knights of Rhodes were Christian military monks who fought Muslim pirates. They operated from the island of Rhodes in the eastern Mediterranean. However, the Knights also attacked Muslim merchant ships, making them essentially Christian pirates. Barbary pirates increased their activities during the Crusades. They attacked Christian ships carrying supplies to Crusader states. This piracy weakened Crusader logistics and contributed to the eventual Muslim reconquest of the Holy Land. The Fourth Crusade showed how thin the line was between legitimate warfare and piracy. Crusaders attacked and looted Constantinople, a Christian city. This act was essentially massive piracy, disguised as holy war. The development of maritime law. Medieval piracy led to the development of maritime law. The Rhodian Sea Law was one of the earliest legal codes governing sea trade. It established principles for dealing with piracy, shipwreck, and commercial disputes. The laws of Oleron were developed in the 12th century. They governed trade in the English Channel and Atlantic. These laws defined piracy and established punishments. They also protected merchants' rights and regulated maritime commerce. Venice created the Consolato del Mare, a comprehensive maritime code. It covered everything from insurance to piracy. Venetian law influenced maritime legal systems throughout Europe. Venice's commercial success depended on effective maritime law. Medieval courts developed special procedures for piracy cases. Admiralty courts had jurisdiction over crimes committed at sea. They could try pirates even if the crimes occurred outside any nation's territorial waters. This principle remains important in modern international law. The concept of universal jurisdiction for piracy began in medieval times. Pirates were considered enemies of all mankind. Any nation could capture and try pirates regardless of their nationality. This principle made coordinated anti-piracy efforts possible. The Age of Exploration and Privateering. Portuguese and Spanish maritime expansion. The Age of Exploration created new opportunities for piracy. Portuguese and Spanish ships carried immense wealth from Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These treasure-laden vessels attracted pirates from across Europe. Portuguese exploration of the African coast began in the 15th century. Their ships carried gold, ivory, and slaves. Pirates quickly learned the schedules and routes of Portuguese trading expeditions. The African coast became dangerous for all European merchants. Spanish conquest of the Americas produced the greatest pirate opportunities in history. Ships carrying Aztec and Inca gold crossed the Atlantic regularly. The Spanish treasure fleet became the most attractive target for pirates worldwide. The Spanish established the convoy system to protect their treasure ships. Galleons sailed in large fleets protected by warships. This system reduced pirate attacks but couldn't eliminate them completely. Pirates simply waited for ships that sailed alone. Portugal and Spain tried to maintain monopolies on their colonial trade. Other European nations resented these monopolies. They encouraged their own sailors to attack Iberian shipping. This policy blurred the distinction between patriotism and piracy. Francis Drake and English sea dogs. Queen Elizabeth I encouraged English privateers to attack Spanish ships. These sea dogs were heroes in England, but pirates to Spain. Their raids weakened Spanish power and enriched England. Francis Drake was the most famous English sea dog. He circumnavigated the globe while raiding Spanish settlements and ships. Drake captured enormous treasure from Spanish colonies in the Pacific. Queen Elizabeth knighted him for his achievements. Drake's raid on Cadiz in 1587 delayed the Spanish Armada. He burned Spanish ships and captured supplies intended for the invasion of England. This attack was strategically important, but essentially an act of piracy on a massive scale. Thomas Cavendish followed Drake's example by circumnavigating the globe while raiding Spanish ships. He captured the Manila galleon off California, one of the richest prizes in pirate history. Cavendish returned to England incredibly wealthy. English sea dogs operated with royal approval, but minimal oversight. They kept most of their captured treasure. This arrangement encouraged aggressive raids against Spanish shipping. It also made England rich from Spanish colonial wealth. French corsairs and Mediterranean warfare. France developed its own system of state-sponsored piracy. French corsairs attacked the shipping of France's enemies. They operated under royal licenses that supposedly made their activities legal. Jean Angot was one of the most successful French corsair leaders. He organized expeditions from Dieppe that attacked Portuguese and Spanish ships. Ango's corsairs captured vessels returning from Brazil and Africa loaded with valuable cargo. The Mediterranean remained a center of Christian-Muslim piracy. Christian corsairs from Malta, France, and Italy attacked Muslim shipping. Muslim corsairs from North Africa retaliated against Christian vessels. This cycle of piracy continued for centuries. French corsairs also operated in the Atlantic. They attacked Spanish treasure ships and Portuguese slave traders. Some French expeditions reached the Caribbean to raid Spanish settlements. These long-range raids required careful planning and substantial resources. The French crown benefited enormously from corsair activities. Royal licenses required corsairs to share their profits with the king. This arrangement funded French naval expansion and colonial ventures. Dutch sea beggars and the fight for independence. The Dutch War of Independence created a new type of pirate patriot. Dutch sea beggars combined piracy with national liberation. They attacked Spanish shipping while fighting for Dutch freedom. Sea beggars operated from hidden bases in coastal waters. They used shallow draft ships that could navigate Dutch waterways. Spanish warships couldn't follow them into these treacherous channels. The capture of Brielle in 1572 marked the beginning of Dutch success. Sea beggars seized this strategic port and used it as a base for further operations. Their success inspired Dutch resistance throughout the Low Countries. Willem van der Mark was one of the most effective sea beggar leaders. He combined naval raids with land campaigns against Spanish forces. His tactics influenced later Dutch naval strategy and colonial expansion. Dutch piracy evolved into legitimate naval power. Former sea beggars became admirals in the Dutch Navy. Their knowledge of irregular warfare proved valuable in Dutch conflicts with Spain, France, and England. The Barbary Coast reaches its peak. North African piracy reached new heights during the 16th century. The Ottoman Empire supported Barbary corsairs as an unofficial navy. These pirates controlled much of the Mediterranean and expanded into the Atlantic. Hayreddin Barbarossa was the most famous Barbary corsair. He built an Ottoman naval empire in the Mediterranean. Barbarossa combined piracy with legitimate naval warfare against Christian enemies. Saleh pirates expanded their operations into the Atlantic. They established bases in Morocco and raided European shipping. Some Saleh corsairs reached as far as Newfoundland to capture fishing vessels. The economic impact of Barbary piracy was enormous. European trade in the Mediterranean declined dramatically. Insurance costs for merchant ships increased. Some trade routes became completely unusable. European powers struggled to respond effectively to Barbary piracy. Naval expeditions were expensive and often unsuccessful. Diplomatic ransoms for captured sailors cost millions. Barbary piracy remained a major problem for centuries. The Caribbean awakened. Early Caribbean settlement and piracy. The Caribbean islands became the new frontier for European expansion. Spanish, English, French, and Dutch colonies competed for control. This competition created perfect conditions for piracy to flourish. Spanish settlements in the Caribbean were wealthy but poorly defended. Gold and silver from Mexico and Peru passed through Caribbean ports. Pirates quickly realized these shipping routes offered enormous opportunities. Tortuga became the first major pirate base in the Caribbean. This small island off Haiti provided an ideal refuge. It had natural harbors, fresh water, and was difficult for large warships to attack. Pirates could repair their ships and plan new raids. The buccaneers were the first organized Caribbean pirates. They began as hunters on Hispaniola, who sold meat to passing ships. When Spanish authorities tried to drive them away, many turned to piracy for survival. Early buccaneers used small, fast boats called sloops. These vessels could outrun Spanish galleons and escape into shallow waters. Sloops became the preferred pirate vessel throughout the Caribbean's golden age. The Buccaneer Brotherhood. Buccaneers developed their own society with unique customs and laws. They elected their captains democratically. All major decisions required crew votes. This democratic system was revolutionary for its time. The Buccaneer Code governed behavior on pirate ships. It established rules for dividing treasure, compensating injured pirates and punishing deserters. These codes were strictly enforced, and violations could result in death or marooning. Buccaneers shared treasure according to established formulas. The captain received 2 shares, skilled craftsmen got 1.5 shares, and ordinary sailors received 1 share. This system seemed fair to most pirates and reduced conflicts. Pirates who lost limbs in battle received compensation from the ship's treasury. The loss of a right arm was worth 600 pieces of 8. A lost leg was worth 500 pieces of 8. This early disability insurance showed buccaneer solidarity. Buccaneer marriages were temporary arrangements that lasted only while ships remained in port. These relationships provided companionship, but didn't create permanent obligations. This system reflected the uncertain nature of pirate life. Henry Morgan and the sack of Panama. Henry Morgan became the most famous buccaneer leader. He organized large expeditions that attacked Spanish cities and captured enormous treasure. Morgan's success inspired generations of Caribbean pirates. Morgan's first major raid targeted Puerto Príncipe in Cuba. His force of 700 buccaneers captured the city and held it for ransom. This success established Morgan's reputation and attracted more followers to his expeditions. The sack of Portobello in 1668 was Morgan's greatest early victory. This Spanish fortress city was supposedly impregnable. Morgan's buccaneers captured it through daring night attacks and clever tactics. Morgan's expedition against Panama in 1671 was the largest buccaneer operation in history. Over 1,000 pirates marched across the Panamanian Isthmus to attack the Pacific coast city. The expedition captured enormous treasure, but nearly destroyed Panama. The English government initially supported Morgan's raids against Spanish territories. However, when England and Spain made peace, Morgan was arrested and sent to London. He was later pardoned and became Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. The growth of Port Royal, Jamaica, became the unofficial capital of Caribbean piracy. English governors encouraged pirates to use it as a base. The city grew incredibly wealthy from pirate spending and became known as the wickedest city on earth. Pirates brought captured treasure to Port Royal's merchants and taverns. Spanish gold bought English goods, creating a thriving economy. The city's population included merchants, craftsmen, sailors, and countless tavern keepers. Port Royal's fortifications were maintained partly by pirate contributions. Pirates paid harbor fees and bought supplies from local merchants. In return, they received protection from Spanish attacks and access to repair facilities. The Royal Navy maintained a base at Port Royal, but often cooperated with pirates. Naval officers sometimes joined pirate expeditions or bought captured goods at discount prices. This corruption weakened official anti-piracy efforts. Port Royal's prosperity depended entirely on piracy. When the English government began suppressing piracy, the city's economy collapsed. The Great Earthquake of 1692 destroyed much of Port Royal, ending its role as a pirate haven. French buccaneers and the Leeward Islands. French buccaneers operated from bases in Martinique, Guadeloupe, and other Leeward Islands. They attacked Spanish shipping, but also competed with English pirates for the best prizes. Jane David Now, known as l'Olonnais, was one of the most brutal French buccaneers. He tortured Spanish prisoners and showed no mercy to enemies. His cruelty became legendary throughout the Caribbean. L'Olonnais led expeditions against Spanish settlements in Venezuela and Central America. His raids captured significant treasure, but also increased Spanish efforts to destroy buccaneer bases. French colonial governors officially discouraged piracy, but privately supported it. Pirates brought captured Spanish goods to French markets and weakened Spain's colonial empire. This unofficial support continued for decades. The competition between English and French buccaneers sometimes led to conflicts. Pirates of different nationalities would fight over the best hunting grounds or most valuable prizes. These conflicts weakened pirate unity. Dutch pirates and the slave trade. Dutch pirates operated from bases in Curaçao and other Caribbean islands. They focused particularly on capturing Spanish ships carrying African slaves. The slave trade offered enormous profits for successful pirates. Piet Hein was the most successful Dutch pirate admiral. In 1628, he captured the entire Spanish treasure fleet off Cuba. This victory brought the Dutch West India Company profits worth millions of modern dollars. Dutch pirates often sold captured slaves in Caribbean markets. This trade violated Spanish colonial laws, but was extremely profitable. Dutch merchants created networks to distribute captured slaves throughout the Caribbean. The Dutch West India Company officially condemned piracy, but privately benefited from it. Company officials bought captured goods at low prices and sold them at enormous profits in European markets. Dutch pirates also attacked Portuguese ships carrying slaves from Africa. These raids disrupted the slave trade and forced Portugal to provide better naval protection for slave ships. The Golden Age began, the end of the buccaneer era. The Treaty of Madrid in 1670 officially ended Spanish tolerance for English piracy. England agreed to suppress pirates operating from Jamaica in exchange for Spanish recognition of English Caribbean colonies. This treaty marked the beginning of the end for organized buccaneering. Governments that had previously encouraged piracy now began hunting their former allies. Many buccaneers were forced to retire or become outlaws. Some buccaneers tried to continue their careers as legitimate privateers. They sought commissions from various European powers involved in colonial conflicts. However, these opportunities were limited and often temporary. The destruction of Port Royal in 1692 symbolized the end of the buccaneer era. The earthquake that devastated the city was seen by many as divine punishment for piracy. Survivors relocated to Kingston, which never achieved Port Royal's notoriety. Many former buccaneers became planters, merchants, or colonial officials. They used their pirate wealth to establish legitimate businesses. This transition shows how piracy could lead to social mobility in colonial society. The rise of individual pirate captains. As organized buccaneering declined, individual pirate captains began operating independently. These pirates were less connected to colonial governments and more purely criminal in their activities. Captain William Kidd represents the transition from legitimate privateering to pure piracy. Kidd received a commission to hunt pirates but ended up becoming one himself. His trial and execution marked a new government attitude toward piracy. Kidd's expedition was financed by prominent English politicians and merchants. When it failed to capture legitimate prizes, Kidd attacked neutral ships. His backers abandoned him when their involvement became politically embarrassing. The trial of Captain Kidd became a major political scandal in England. His wealthy sponsors tried to distance themselves from his actions. Kidd was ultimately executed despite his claims of legitimacy. Red Sea pirates began operating from bases in Madagascar. They attacked Muslim pilgrimage ships traveling to Mecca. These raids were extremely profitable, but also politically dangerous for European governments. Thomas II and the Red Sea Round. Thomas II pioneered the Red Sea Round, a new pirate route that connected the Americas with the Indian Ocean. Pirates sailed from Caribbean bases to Madagascar and then to the Red Sea. II's first Red Sea voyage captured a Muslim treasure ship worth over 100,000. This enormous prize encouraged other pirates to attempt similar voyages. The Red Sea Round became extremely popular among ambitious pirates. Madagascar provided an ideal base for Red Sea pirates. The island was outside European control and had friendly relations with local rulers. Pirates could repair ships, recruit crew, and plan expeditions. The port of Sainte Marie became a major pirate base on Madagascar's east coast. Hundreds of pirates lived there permanently, creating a virtual pirate republic. The community included shops, taverns, and even a small fort. Red Sea piracy created diplomatic problems for European governments. Muslim rulers complained about attacks on pilgrimage ships. The English East India Company demanded government action against the pirates. Henry Every and the Fancy. Henry Every became the most notorious Red Sea pirate. His capture of the Ganges Sawai in 1695 was the richest pirate prize in history. The ship carried over 600,000 pounds in treasure and caused a major international incident. Every crew mutinied aboard the privateering ship Charles II and elected him captain. They renamed the ship Fancy and sailed to the Indian Ocean. This mutiny showed how privateering could quickly turn into piracy. The Ganges Sawai belonged to the Mughal Emperor of India. Every attack on this ship outraged Muslim rulers and threatened English trade in India. The English government offered enormous rewards for Evry's capture. Evry's crew tortured and murdered passengers aboard the captured ship. These atrocities became widely known and increased public outrage against piracy. The crimes made Evry one of the most wanted men in the world. Evry disappeared after dividing the treasure among his crew. Some sources claim he retired to a peaceful life in England. Others believe he was killed by former crew members. His fate remains unknown. The War of Spanish Succession and Privateering. The War of Spanish Succession, 1701-1714, created new opportunities for legal privateering. European powers issued thousands of letters of marque to attack enemy shipping. This renewed legitimacy encouraged many former pirates. Queen Anne's War, as the conflict was known in America, saw extensive privateering in Caribbean waters. American colonists fitted out numerous privateering vessels to attack French and Spanish ships. Many former pirates received royal pardons in exchange for privateering service. Governments preferred to use their skills against enemies rather than continue hunting them. This policy showed pragmatic acceptance of pirate abilities. The line between privateering and piracy remained blurred during the war. Many privateers attacked neutral ships or continued raiding after their commissions expired. Colonial courts often ignored these violations. The end of Queen Anne's War in 1714 left thousands of unemployed privateers. Peace treaties prohibited further attacks on former enemies. Many privateers had no choice but to turn to piracy or find other occupations. Colonial anti-piracy efforts. Colonial governments gradually increased their anti-piracy efforts. They built better fortifications and established regular naval patrols. Pirates found it increasingly difficult to use colonial ports safely. The Royal Navy established permanent squadrons in American and Caribbean waters. These forces specifically targeted pirate vessels and bases. The Navy's presence made piracy much more dangerous than before. Colonial courts began trying pirates under new laws that made conviction easier. The death penalty became standard for piracy convictions. Public executions were designed to deter other potential pirates. Rewards for capturing pirates increased dramatically. Governors offered substantial payments for pirate captains dead or alive. These bounties encouraged both naval officers and civilian ship captains to hunt pirates. Some colonial merchants hired private vessels to hunt pirates. These anti-piracy expeditions were profitable when successful, but also dangerous. Pirates often fought desperately when cornered by bounty hunters. The Golden Age peaks. The Bahamas Pirate Republic. After the War of Spanish Succession ended in 1714, thousands of unemployed privateers gathered in the Bahamas. New Providence Island became the center of a virtual pirate republic that lasted for several years. The Bahamas were perfect for piracy. The islands had numerous hidden harbors and were poorly governed by British authorities. Pirates could operate freely while remaining close to major shipping lanes. New Providence's harbor could accommodate dozens of pirate ships simultaneously. The settlement included taverns, shops, and even a primitive form of government. Pirates elected their own leaders and established their own laws. Benjamin Hornigold emerged as the unofficial leader of the Bahamas pirates. He organized expeditions and mediated disputes between rival captains. Hornigold's leadership helped maintain order among the chaotic pirate community. The Pirate Republic attracted outcasts from across the Caribbean. Former privateers, escaped slaves, deserters, and criminals all found refuge on New Providence. This diversity created a unique multicultural society. Edward Teach, known as Blackbeard, became the most feared pirate of the Golden Age. His terrifying appearance and ruthless reputation made him a legend throughout the Caribbean and American colonies. Blackbeard sailed aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, a former French slave ship equipped with 40 cannons. This powerful vessel could outfight most merchant ships and many naval vessels. Blackbeard's appearance was carefully crafted to terrify his enemies. He wove hemp and ribbons into his black beard and lit slow matches under his hat during battle. The smoking matches created a demonic appearance. Blackbeard formed alliances with other pirate captains to create temporary fleets. These combined forces could attack larger targets and control wider areas. The alliances showed sophisticated pirate organization. The blockade of Charleston in 1718 was Blackbeard's boldest operation. His fleet stopped all shipping to the important colonial port for several days. The pirates demanded medical supplies as ransom for captured passengers. Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart. Bartholomew Roberts became the most successful pirate captain of the Golden Age. He captured over 400 ships during his 3-year career. Roberts' success inspired many others to try piracy. Roberts began his pirate career when his ship was captured by pirates. He quickly rose through the ranks and was elected captain after the previous leader was killed. Roberts' rapid promotion showed exceptional leadership abilities. Black Bart developed the most comprehensive pirate code of the Golden Age. His articles covered everything from gambling to the treatment of women. Roberts' code became a model for other pirate crews. Roberts operated primarily off the African coast, where he captured slave ships and trading vessels. His knowledge of African waters gave him advantages over pursuing naval forces. The Royal Navy finally cornered Roberts off the coast of Gabon in 17. He was killed during the battle, and his death marked the beginning of the end for Golden Age piracy. Anne Bonny and Mary Red, female pirates. Anne Bonny and Mary Red were the most famous female pirates of the Golden Age. Both sailed with Captain John Rackham and fought alongside male pirates as equals. Anne Bonny was born in Ireland and emigrated to the Caribbean as a child. She married a small-time pirate, but left him to join John Rackham's crew. Bonny's fierce fighting ability earned respect from her male colleagues. Mary Red had disguised herself as a man since childhood to receive an inheritance. She served in the Army and Navy before joining Rackham's pirate crew. Red's military experience made her an effective fighter. Both women were captured when Rackham's ship was attacked by a Jamaican naval vessel in 1720. They fought more bravely than most of the male crew members, who were too drunk to resist effectively. Anne Bonny and Mary Red were tried for piracy in Jamaica. Both claimed to be pregnant to avoid immediate execution. Red died in prison, but Bonny's fate remains unknown. The trial of Bonny and Red attracted enormous attention. Their presence proved that piracy attracted people from all backgrounds. Female pirates challenged social conventions about women's roles in society. The pirate codes and democracy. Golden Age pirates developed sophisticated codes that governed life aboard their ships. These codes established democratic principles that were advanced for their time. Pirate codes typically required democratic election of captains and other officers. Crews could vote to remove incompetent or unpopular leaders. This democratic system contrasted sharply with the absolute authority of naval and merchant captains. Most pirate codes guaranteed equal voting rights for all crew members. Decisions about targets, routes, and the distribution of treasure required majority votes. This equality was revolutionary in an age of rigid social hierarchies. Pirate codes established early forms of workers' compensation. Pirates who lost limbs or suffered injuries in battle received fixed payments from the crew's treasury. This system protected disabled pirates from destitution. The codes also regulated behavior aboard ship. Gambling, fighting, and desertion were strictly prohibited. Some codes banned women from ships to prevent conflicts among crew members. Pirate hunting and naval response. As piracy increased, European governments expanded their naval forces in colonial waters. The Royal Navy established permanent squadrons specifically dedicated to hunting pirates. Captain Woodes Rogers was appointed governor of the Bahamas, with orders to eliminate the pirate republic. He arrived with a naval squadron and offered pardons to pirates who surrendered. Many pirates accepted Rogers' pardons and retired from their criminal careers. Some even joined Rogers' forces as pirate hunters. This strategy divided the pirate community and weakened their resistance. The Royal Navy developed new tactics specifically for fighting pirates. They used smaller, faster ships that could pursue pirates into shallow waters. Naval officers received rewards for capturing pirate vessels. Colonial courts streamlined piracy trials to ensure swift justice. Special admiralty courts could try pirates without juries. These courts had authority to impose death sentences, which were usually carried out immediately. The economics of Golden Age piracy. Golden Age piracy operated as an illegal but sophisticated economic system. Pirates redistributed wealth from legitimate trade but also created their own markets and services. Pirate crews functioned as joint stock companies. All members invested their labor and shared in profits according to predetermined agreements. This system distributed risks and rewards among participants. Pirates created demand for goods and services in colonial ports. They bought supplies, equipment, and luxuries with captured treasure. This spending supported colonial economies despite government opposition. The slave trade was particularly affected by piracy. Pirates frequently captured slave ships and either freed the slaves or sold them in illegal markets. This disruption affected plantation economies throughout the Caribbean. Insurance costs for merchant shipping increased dramatically due to piracy. Lloyd's of London and other insurers charged higher premiums for Caribbean voyages. These costs made legitimate trade more expensive. Pirate strongholds and hideouts. Pirates established bases throughout the Caribbean and along the American coast. These strongholds provided safe harbors, supplies, and places to divide treasure. Tortuga remained an important pirate base despite increasing government pressure. The island's French colonial government often ignored pirate activities in exchange for informal protection against Spanish attacks. The Carolinas provided numerous hideouts for pirates operating along the American coast. Shallow coastal waters and corrupt officials made these areas attractive to pirates seeking temporary refuge. Madagascar continued to serve Red Sea pirates as a major base. The island's distance from European authority and friendly local rulers made it nearly impregnable to naval attack. Some pirates established temporary bases on uninhabited Caribbean islands. These camps served as meeting points and supply depots, but could be abandoned quickly when naval forces approached. The decline and fall. Government crackdowns intensified. By 1720, European governments had decided that piracy posed too great a threat to colonial trade. Coordinated campaigns began to eliminate pirate strongholds and capture remaining pirate leaders. The British government increased naval presence in American and Caribbean waters. New ships and additional personnel were specifically assigned to anti-piracy operations. The Royal Navy received orders to show no mercy to captured pirates. Colonial governors received new authority to deal with piracy. They could offer pardons to encourage surrender, but also had power to declare martial law against pirate communities. The death penalty became standard for piracy convictions. Public executions were held in major ports to demonstrate government determination. These grisly spectacles were designed to deter potential pirates. International cooperation against piracy increased significantly. European powers shared information about pirate movements and coordinated naval patrols. This cooperation made it much harder for pirates to find safe refuge. The last of the great captains, Charles Vane, continued operating from Bahamian bases even after Woodes Rogers arrived. He refused the royal pardon and led a small group of die-hard pirates. Vane's defiance made him a symbol of pirate resistance. Vane's crew eventually voted to remove him as captain for cowardice. He was marooned on a small island where he lived as a castaway for several months. Vane was finally captured and executed in Jamaica. Edward Lowe became one of the last successful pirate captains. He operated in the North Atlantic and captured numerous vessels. Lowe's extreme cruelty made him feared and hated, even among pirates. Lowe's brutality ultimately turned his own crew against him. They marooned him on a small island, where he probably died of starvation. His fate showed how excessive violence could destroy pirate leadership. The capture and execution of Bartholomew Roberts in 1722 marked the effective end of Golden Age piracy. Roberts' death removed the last major pirate leader and demoralized remaining pirates. The end of pirate strongholds. Woodes Rogers successfully eliminated the Bahamas Pirate Republic. His combination of pardons and military force divided the pirate community and destroyed their organization. Rogers rebuilt Nassau as a legitimate colonial town. He constructed proper fortifications and established regular government. Former pirates became respectable citizens or moved elsewhere. Colonial authorities attacked remaining pirate bases throughout the Caribbean. Naval expeditions destroyed pirate camps and captured their supplies. Pirates found it increasingly difficult to maintain permanent bases. The Madagascar pirate community gradually dispersed as naval pressure increased. Some pirates retired to remote areas of the island, while others attempted to return to Europe or America. Corrupt colonial officials who had supported piracy faced prosecution and removal from office. The British government appointed new administrators with strict orders to suppress all pirate activities. Economic changes and alternative opportunity. The expansion of legitimate trade reduced piracy's economic appeal. Growing colonial economies provided more legal opportunities for employment and advancement. Many former pirates became merchants, planters, or ship captains. Their maritime skills were valuable in legitimate occupations. Some achieved considerable success in business and politics. The Royal Navy recruited former pirates as sailors and officers. Their experience and skills were valuable for naval operations. This policy provided an alternative to execution for surrendering pirates. Colonial governments established new industries that employed former pirates. Shipbuilding, fishing, and agriculture all benefited from pirate skills and labor. The slave trade continued to offer illegal but profitable opportunities. Some former pirates became slave traders or ship captains in this brutal but legal commerce. Cultural legacy and romanticization. Even as piracy declined, its cultural impact continued to grow. Stories of pirate adventures spread throughout European and American society. The trial accounts of famous pirates became popular reading material. These documents provided detailed information about pirate activities and helped create the legendary image of pirate life. Ballads and songs about famous pirates circulated widely. These folk compositions romanticized pirate careers and ignored their violent realities. Pirates became folk heroes in popular culture. The democratic ideals of pirate societies influenced political thought. Some writers cited pirate codes as examples of natural democracy. These ideas contributed to Enlightenment political philosophy. Pirate symbols, like the Jolly Roger, became iconic images. The skull and crossbones flag represented rebellion against authority and freedom from social constraints. The transformation of maritime law. The piracy crisis led to significant developments in international maritime law. Nations cooperated to establish legal frameworks for suppressing piracy. The concept of universal jurisdiction for piracy became firmly established. Any nation could capture and try pirates, regardless of their nationality or the location of their crimes. New treaties defined piracy more precisely and established procedures for international cooperation. These agreements became models for later international law. Admiralty courts developed special procedures for piracy cases. These courts could operate in colonial territories and had authority to impose death sentences without appeal. The suppression of piracy demonstrated the growing power of centralized governments. States proved they could control activities in distant waters and eliminate threats to commerce. Final expeditions and last stands. Small groups of pirates continued operating in remote areas of the Caribbean and Atlantic. These final expeditions were typically brief and unsuccessful. John Phillips led one of the last significant pirate crews in 1723. His ship was captured by colonial forces after only a few months of raiding. Phillips and most of his crew were executed. William Fly attempted to revive large-scale piracy in 1726. His expedition captured only a few small vessels before being overwhelmed by naval forces. Fly's failure showed that the Golden Age was truly over. Some pirates attempted to establish new bases in remote locations like the Honduras coast. These efforts failed due to lack of support and constant naval pressure. The execution of the last major pirate cruise in the late 1720s effectively ended the Golden Age. Piracy continued to exist, but never again reached the scale or organization of the early 18th century. Pirates in the modern world. The decline of traditional piracy. After 1730, traditional Caribbean piracy became increasingly rare. Improved naval patrols and colonial governments made piracy too dangerous for most criminals. The Romantic Age of pirates was ending. Small-scale piracy continued in remote areas of the Caribbean and Atlantic. These operations involved only a few men and captured minor prizes. They lacked the organization and success of Golden Age piracy. Former pirate strongholds became legitimate colonial settlements. Nassau, Port Royal, and other pirate bases developed into thriving commercial ports. The transformation showed how quickly societies could change. Many former pirates integrated into colonial society. They became merchants, planters, sailors, and craftsmen. Their maritime skills remained valuable in legitimate occupations. The Royal Navy maintained permanent anti-piracy patrols in Caribbean and American waters. These forces could respond quickly to any reports of pirate activity. Naval presence made piracy extremely risky. Barbary pirates continued. While Caribbean piracy declined, Barbary pirates continued operating from North African bases. These corsairs remained active well into the 19th century and posed ongoing threats to Mediterranean shipping. Barbary pirates had advantages that Caribbean pirates lacked. They operated from established cities with strong fortifications. Their governments officially supported their activities against Christian enemies. American merchants became frequent targets of Barbary pirates. The new United States had no navy to protect its shipping. American sailors were captured and enslaved in North African markets. The Barbary Wars between 1801 and 1815 marked America's first foreign military campaigns. The United States built a navy specifically to fight North African pirates. These conflicts established American naval power. European powers also launched expeditions against Barbary pirate bases. Bombardments of Algiers, Tunis, and other cities reduced pirate activities but didn't eliminate them completely. Asian piracy expanded. As Atlantic piracy declined, Asian waters saw increased pirate activity. Chinese, Indonesian, and Philippine pirates operated large fleets that controlled extensive territories. Chinese piracy reached massive proportions in the early 19th century. Pirate confederations controlled hundreds of junks and thousands of fighters. These organizations functioned as virtual navies. Shi Yanging, known as Shi Yang, commanded one of the largest pirate fleets in history. Her confederation included over 800 vessels and 80,000 pirates. This force controlled the Pearl River and challenged Chinese imperial authority. Indonesian and Malay pirates operated from bases throughout the island chains. They attacked European trading ships and imposed their own taxes on local commerce. Dutch colonial forces struggled to suppress them. The Sulu pirates of the southern Philippines became notorious for slave raiding. They captured thousands of people from coastal settlements and sold them in regional slave markets. The War of 1812 and privateering revival. The War of 1812 between Britain and America created new opportunities for legal privateering. Both sides issued letters of marque to attack enemy shipping. American privateers proved extremely effective against British commerce. Over 500 American privateering vessels captured more than 1,300 British ships. These losses significantly damaged British trade. Captain Thomas Boyle commanded the Chasseur, one of the most successful American privateers. His ship captured numerous British vessels and even raided the English coast. Boyle became a national hero in America. British privateers also attacked American shipping, but with less success. The Royal Navy preferred to use regular warships rather than private vessels for commerce raiding. The Treaty of Ghent in 1815 ended the war and terminated privateering commissions. Many former privateers had difficulty returning to legitimate occupations, and some turned to piracy. The suppression of the slave trade. International efforts to abolish the slave trade created new forms of maritime law enforcement. Naval patrols attempted to intercept slave ships and free their human cargo. The Royal Navy established the West Africa Squadron specifically to suppress the slave trade. These ships patrolled African waters and captured illegal slave vessels. Some former pirates became slave traders or joined anti-slavery patrols. Their maritime skills were valuable for both legal and illegal activities. The transformation showed how quickly loyalties could change. Captured slave ships were brought to special courts for adjudication. These international tribunals established precedents for later maritime law. The legal framework influenced modern international law. Pirates sometimes freed slaves from captured ships. These actions were motivated by self-interest rather than humanitarian concerns, but they disrupted the slave trade nonetheless. South American independence and piracy. The South American Wars of Independence created new opportunities for privateering and piracy. Revolutionary governments issued letters of marque to attack Spanish shipping. Simon Bolivar and other revolutionary leaders encouraged privateers to help their cause. These vessels captured Spanish treasure ships and weakened colonial authority. Jean Lafitte operated from bases in Louisiana and Texas during this period. He combined piracy with smuggling and occasionally helped American forces. Lafitte's career showed the complex relationships between pirates and governments. Many independence privateers continued raiding after wars ended. They attacked shipping from all nations and became pure pirates. This transition created new problems for regional governments. The establishment of independent South American nations led to better naval cooperation against piracy. Former Spanish colonies worked together to suppress pirate activities in their waters. Technology changes maritime warfare. Steam-powered ships began replacing sailing vessels in the mid-19th century. This technological change affected both pirates and anti-piracy forces. Early steamships were faster and more reliable than sailing ships. Naval forces could pursue pirates more effectively and weren't dependent on wind conditions. Pirates initially had difficulty adapting to steam technology. Steam engines required coal, mechanics, and maintenance facilities that pirates couldn't easily obtain. Some pirates did acquire steam vessels and used them effectively. These ships could escape from sailing warships and attack targets in previously safe waters. The telegraph allowed rapid communication between ports and naval stations. Authorities could coordinate anti-piracy operations more effectively and track pirate movements. The last of the Caribbean pirates. Small groups of Caribbean pirates continued operating into the 1820s and 1830s. These final expeditions were typically brief and unsuccessful affairs. Roberto Cofresi operated from Puerto Rico in the 1820s. He combined piracy with smuggling and became a folk hero among local people. Spanish authorities finally captured and executed him in 18. The Galveston Pirates under Jean Lafitte represented one of the last organized Caribbean pirate communities. They operated from Texas until Mexican and American pressure forced them to disperse. Benito de Soto led one of the last major pirate expeditions in the 1820s. His crew operated a captured ship off the Spanish coast until naval forces destroyed them. The execution of the last Caribbean pirate crews in the 1830s effectively ended traditional piracy in Atlantic waters. Future pirates would operate in different regions and use different methods. The Far East and the age of gunboat diplomacy. The Chinese Pirate Confederation. Chinese piracy reached unprecedented scale in the early 19th century. Massive confederations controlled vast areas of the South China Sea and posed serious challenges to imperial authority. The pirate confederations organized themselves by flag colors. The Red Flag Fleet was the largest, followed by the yellow, blue, white, and green flag fleets. Each confederation operated hundreds of vessels. Shi Yangying commanded the Red Flag Fleet after her husband's death. She proved to be a brilliant military leader and administrator. Her confederation became the most powerful force in the Pearl River Delta. The pirate confederations established their own governments with laws, taxes, and administrative systems. They issued safe passage documents and collected tribute from merchant ships. Chinese pirates used traditional junks modified for warfare. These vessels carried cannons and could transport large crews. The largest pirate junks were formidable warships. Shi Yangying, the Pirate Empress. Shi Yangying became the most powerful pirate leader in history. At her peak, she commanded over 1,800 vessels and 80,000 followers. Her confederation controlled more territory than many countries. Shi Yangying established comprehensive laws for her confederation. These codes covered everything from the treatment of captives to the distribution of loot. Violation of these laws carried severe penalties. The Pirate Empress negotiated directly with Chinese imperial officials. She was treated as the leader of a sovereign state rather than a criminal. These negotiations showed the practical limits of imperial power. Shi Yangying's confederation operated a parallel government in areas under their control. They collected taxes, administered justice, and provided protection services. Local merchants often preferred pirate rule to imperial corruption. The Chinese government eventually negotiated Shi Yangying's surrender in 1810. She received an imperial pardon, and many of her followers joined the imperial navy. Her career showed how piracy could become a form of political power. Malay and Indonesian pirates. The waters around Indonesia and Malaysia harbored numerous pirate communities. These groups operated from island bases and attacked both local and European shipping. Malay pirates used fast, shallow draft vessels called praus. These boats could navigate coastal waters where larger ships couldn't follow. Pirates could strike quickly and escape into protected channels. The Ria Lingga Sultanate officially discouraged piracy, but privately benefited from it. Pirate activities weakened Dutch colonial control and brought wealth to local rulers. Indonesian pirates often combined raiding with legitimate trade. They would attack ships in some areas while conducting business in others. This dual role made them difficult to combat effectively. Dutch colonial forces struggled to suppress Indonesian piracy. The complex geography of the region provided countless hiding places. Pirates knew local waters better than European naval officers. Sulu pirates and slave raiding. The Sulu Sultanate in the southern Philippines became the center of extensive slave raiding operations. These pirates captured thousands of people annually for sale in regional markets. Sulu pirates operated large fleets of swift vessels called lanongs. These ships could carry up to 100 warriors and were specifically designed for slave raiding. The Iranan and Balangi peoples were the primary slave raiders. They attacked coastal settlements throughout the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Entire villages were sometimes captured and enslaved. Captured slaves were sold in markets throughout the region. The Spanish colonial government and local rulers bought slaves despite official prohibitions. This demand sustained the slave-raiding economy. Spanish and British naval forces launched expeditions against Sulu pirate bases. These campaigns had limited success due to the complex geography and local resistance. European colonial responsive. European colonial powers gradually increased their naval presence in Asian waters. They built networks of naval bases and patrol stations to combat piracy. The Royal Navy established squadrons in Indian and Chinese waters. These forces protected British merchant shipping and supported colonial authorities. Dutch naval forces operated from bases in Java and other Indonesian islands. They conducted regular patrols against Malay and Indonesian pirates. Spanish forces in the Philippines focused primarily on Sulu pirates. They built coastal fortifications and organized local militias for defense. International cooperation against Asian pirates remained limited. European powers were often more concerned with competing against each other than suppressing piracy. The Opium Wars and maritime security. The Opium Wars between Britain and China created new opportunities for piracy. The conflicts disrupted normal trade and weakened government control over coastal waters. British naval operations against Chinese ports created chaos that pirates exploited. Merchant ships became easier targets when naval forces were engaged in warfare. Some Chinese pirates allied with British forces against the imperial government. They provided intelligence and served as auxiliaries in exchange for protection. The Treaty of Nanking in 1842 opened Chinese ports to foreign trade. This increased shipping created new opportunities for both legitimate commerce and piracy. Foreign naval bases in Chinese ports provided better security for international shipping. However, they also created tensions with local authorities and populations. Steam technology and anti-piracy operation. Steam-powered gunboats revolutionized anti-piracy operations in Asian waters. These vessels could pursue pirates into previously safe coastal areas. The Royal Navy's gunboat diplomacy used small steam vessels to project power in shallow waters. These ships could navigate rivers and coastal channels where sailing ships couldn't operate. Steam gunboats carried heavy armament. Despite their small size, they could outfight traditional pirate vessels and destroy pirate bases. Pirates initially had great difficulty adapting to steam technology. They lacked the technical knowledge and infrastructure needed to maintain steam engines. Some pirate groups eventually acquired steam vessels through capture or purchase. However, they never achieved the same technological advantage they had enjoyed with traditional sailing craft. The decline of Asian piracy. Improved naval patrols gradually reduced Asian piracy throughout the 19th century. European colonial powers devoted increasing resources to maritime security. The completion of the Suez Canal in 1869 increased shipping through Asian waters. This growth in legitimate trade made piracy less tolerable to governments and merchants. Telegraph communications allowed rapid coordination of anti-piracy operations. Naval commanders could share intelligence and coordinate responses more effectively. Local governments gradually established more effective control over their territories. Traditional pirate strongholds came under increasing pressure from expanding state authority. The transition from sail to steam power gave naval forces decisive advantages over traditional pirates. By 1900, large-scale piracy had largely disappeared from Asian waters. Pirates in the Industrial Age, river pirates, and inland waterways. As ocean piracy declined, some criminals turned to river and lake piracy. Major waterways like the Mississippi River, Rhine, and Yangtze became hunting grounds for these pirates. Mississippi River pirates operated from bases along the river's many tributaries. They attacked cargo boats carrying goods between New Orleans and interior cities. These pirates often worked with river pilots and dock workers. The Cave-in Rock Gang controlled a strategic location on the Ohio River. They operated from a natural cave that provided an ideal base for ambushing river traffic. The gang combined piracy with innkeeping and ferry services. European river pirates operated on the Rhine, Danube, and other major waterways. They attacked cargo barges and passenger vessels. River pirates often had detailed knowledge of local conditions and corrupt officials. Chinese river pirates controlled sections of the Yangtze and other major rivers. They imposed their own taxes on shipping and provided protection services. Some groups operated virtual governments in areas under their control. The American Civil War and Confederate raiders. The American Civil War created new forms of maritime conflict that resembled traditional piracy. Confederate commerce raiders attacked Union merchant shipping worldwide. The CSS Alabama was the most successful Confederate raider. This ship captured or destroyed over 60 Union vessels during its 2-year cruise. The Alabama operated from bases provided by sympathetic foreign governments. Raphael Semmes commanded the Alabama and became known as the Confederate pirate. His raids caused enormous damage to Union commerce and shipping. Semmes used tactics similar to traditional pirates. Confederate raiders often refueled and resupplied at neutral ports. This violated international law, but was difficult to prevent. Some neutral governments secretly supported Confederate operations. The CSS Shenandoah continued raiding even after the war ended. Its captain didn't learn of Confederate surrender until months later. The ship's final raids were technically acts of piracy. Late 19th century piracy. Small-scale piracy continued in various parts of the world throughout the late 19th century. These operations typically involved only a few criminals and captured minor prizes. Mediterranean pirates still operated from North African bases in the 1870s and 1880s. However, their activities were much reduced from earlier periods. European naval power had largely suppressed large-scale piracy. South American pirates operated along the Pacific coast during political instability. They attacked shipping during civil wars and revolutionary periods. These pirates often claimed political motivations. Asian pirates continued operating in remote areas despite increased naval patrols. The complex geography of Indonesia and the Philippines provided ongoing opportunities for piracy. Some criminals used new technologies like dynamite to attack ships. These pirates would board vessels and threaten to blow them up unless crews surrendered. The tactics showed criminal adaptation to industrial technology. Mutinies and piratical acts. Maritime mutinies sometimes led to acts of piracy when crews seized control of their ships. These incidents blurred the line between labor disputes and criminal activity. The Batavia Mutiny in 1629 was one of the most notorious cases. Mutineers massacred passengers and crew members on a remote island. The survivors turned to piracy until authorities captured them. Mutinies on slave ships sometimes resulted in piratical activities. Enslaved Africans occasionally seized control and attempted to return to Africa. These revolts were treated as piracy by colonial authorities. Naval mutinies could also lead to piracy when crews deserted with their ships. These incidents were particularly serious because naval vessels carried heavy armament. Some mutinies were organized by criminal elements who planned to turn to piracy. These conspiracies were difficult to detect and could succeed if they gained enough crew support. The transition to modern crime. Traditional piracy gradually evolved into other forms of maritime crime. Smuggling, insurance fraud, and cargo theft replaced open piracy in many regions. Smugglers used many traditional pirate tactics, but focused on avoiding rather than attacking authorities. They operated fast vessels and maintained networks of corrupt officials. Insurance fraud became a major maritime crime. As shipping insurance became more common, criminals would arrange for ships to be wrecked or captured to collect insurance payments. Cargo theft on the docks replaced piracy on the high seas in many ports. Criminal gangs controlled sections of major harbors and systematically stole valuable cargo. Some criminals combined legitimate shipping with occasional piracy. They would attack vulnerable targets when opportunities arose, but maintained normal business operations most of the time. World War I and maritime warfare. World War I created new forms of maritime conflict that resembled piracy, submarine warfare, commerce raiding, and naval mining, all targeted civilian shipping. German U-boats operated like modern pirates by attacking merchant vessels without warning. These submarines sank thousands of ships and killed many civilian sailors. Surface raiders like the SMS Emden operated in distant waters, attacking Allied shipping. These ships used deception and surprise attacks similar to traditional pirates. Armed merchant cruisers served both sides during the war. These vessels combined legitimate cargo carrying with naval operations against enemy shipping. The war created opportunities for traditional pirates in some regions. Naval forces were diverted to combat operations, reducing patrols against criminal activity. The interwar period. The period between world wars saw continued decline in traditional piracy. However, political instability in some regions created new opportunities for maritime crime. Chinese piracy increased during the warlord period of the 1920s and 1930s. Political fragmentation reduced government control over coastal waters. Russian Civil War refugees sometimes turned to piracy in the Black Sea and Far East. These desperate groups attacked shipping to survive and fund their political activities. Prohibition in the United States created new forms of maritime crime. Rum runners used traditional pirate tactics to evade Coast Guard patrols. The Great Depression led some unemployed sailors to attempt piracy. However, these efforts were generally unsuccessful due to improved maritime security. World War II and the end of an era? World War II marked the final end of traditional piracy in most parts of the world. Modern naval technology and improved international cooperation made large-scale piracy impossible. Submarine warfare during World War II was far more destructive than any historical piracy. German U-boats sank thousands of merchant vessels and killed tens of thousands of sailors. Some resistance movements used piratical tactics against enemy shipping. However, these operations were politically motivated rather than criminal enterprises. The establishment of modern naval forces and international maritime law after 1945 effectively ended traditional piracy. Future maritime crime would take very different forms. The romantic image of historical pirates continued to influence popular culture. However, the reality of modern maritime security made traditional piracy obsolete. Modern piracy. The Cold War era. After World War II, traditional piracy seemed to have disappeared entirely. Modern naval technology and international cooperation had eliminated the conditions that allowed historical piracy to flourish. However, political instability in some regions created opportunities for new forms of maritime crime. The Cold War created proxy conflicts that sometimes involved attacks on civilian shipping. Small-scale piracy continued in remote areas where government control was weak. These incidents typically involved fishing boats or small cargo vessels rather than major commercial shipping. The development of international maritime law strengthened cooperation against piracy. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea established clear legal frameworks for combating maritime crime. Most Cold War maritime conflicts involved state actors rather than private criminals. Naval forces and intelligence agencies conducted operations that resembled historical piracy but served political rather than economic purposes. The emergence of modern piracy. The 1980s saw the emergence of modern piracy in several regions. Political instability, economic desperation, and the growth of international shipping created new opportunities for maritime crime. Southeast Asian waters became a major center of modern piracy. The Strait of Malacca, with its heavy shipping traffic and numerous hiding places, proved ideal for pirate operations. Modern pirates used small, fast boats equipped with outboard motors. These vessels could approach larger ships quickly and escape before authorities could respond. Unlike historical pirates, modern criminals typically sought quick raids for cash and valuable cargo rather than capturing entire ships. Most attacks lasted only minutes or hours. Modern piracy often involved sophisticated criminal networks with connections to corrupt officials. These organizations could operate across national boundaries and avoid law enforcement. Southeast Asian piracy, the waters around Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, became the most dangerous for modern piracy. Thousands of islands provided hiding places, while major shipping lanes offered targets. Indonesian pirates often operated from bases in remote islands. They attacked cargo ships, oil tankers, and fishing vessels. Some groups specialized in kidnapping crew members for ransom. Malaysian waters, particularly around the Strait of Malacca, saw frequent pirate attacks. The narrow waterway forced ships to slow down, making them vulnerable to fast pirate boats. Philippine pirates, particularly in the southern islands, combined traditional raiding with modern criminal activities. Some groups had connections to terrorist organizations. Regional governments struggled to coordinate anti-piracy efforts. Different legal systems and territorial disputes complicated international cooperation. Somali piracy crisis. Somalia became the epicenter of modern piracy in the 2000s. The collapse of the Somali government created perfect conditions for pirate operations. Somali pirates initially began as coastal fishermen, whose livelihood was threatened by foreign fishing vessels and toxic waste dumping. Many turned to piracy out of desperation. The first successful Somali pirate attacks targeted fishing boats and small cargo vessels. Success encouraged expansion to larger targets, including major commercial ships. Somali pirates developed sophisticated operations involving motherships, GPS navigation, and satellite phones. They could operate hundreds of miles from shore. The hijacking of the MV Fina in 2008, carrying military equipment, and the MV Myfors Alabama in 2009 brought international attention to Somali piracy. Modern pirate tactics and technology. Modern pirates use technologies that historical pirates could never have imagined. GPS navigation allows precise location of targets. Satellite phones enable coordination over vast distances. Small fiberglass boats with powerful outboard motors are the preferred pirate vessels. These boats are fast, maneuverable, and difficult to detect on radar. Modern pirates often use automatic weapons like AK-47 rifles and rocket-propelled grenades. This firepower can overwhelm the small crews of merchant vessels. Some pirate groups use larger vessels as motherships to extend their range. These ships can launch smaller attack boats far from shore and provide supplies for extended operations. Intelligence gathering has become crucial for modern piracy. Pirates use informants in ports to identify valuable targets and plan attacks. International response to modern piracy. The international community developed new strategies to combat modern piracy. Naval coalitions, legal frameworks, and private security measures all played important roles. The Combined Maritime Forces established Task Force 151 specifically to combat piracy off Somalia. This international naval coalition included ships from dozens of countries. The European Union launched Operation Atalanta in 2008 to protect shipping off the Somali coast. This was the EU's first major naval operation. The International Maritime Organization developed new guidelines for ship security. These measures included citadels where crews could take refuge during attacks. Private maritime security companies emerged to provide armed guards for merchant vessels. These modern privateers operated under strict legal frameworks, unlike their historical predecessors. The economics of modern piracy. Modern piracy operates as a sophisticated criminal business. Pirates, financiers, negotiators, and support networks all play specialized roles in these operations. Somali pirate operations required significant initial investment. Financiers provided boats, weapons, and supplies in exchange for shares of ransom payments. Successful pirate attacks could generate millions of dollars in ransom payments. The average ransom for a large merchant vessel reached several $million by 2010. Pirate ransoms became a major industry in some coastal communities. Local economies depended on the money that successful pirates brought to their regions. The insurance industry responded to modern piracy by increasing premiums and developing new coverage types. War risk insurance became standard for ships transiting dangerous waters. Legal challenges in modern piracy. Modern international law creates complex jurisdictional issues for prosecuting pirates. Different nations have different legal systems and definitions of piracy. The principle of universal jurisdiction allows any nation to prosecute pirates captured on the high seas. However, many countries are reluctant to accept this responsibility. Some captured pirates have been released due to legal complications. Prosecutors must prove criminal intent and establish jurisdiction, which can be difficult in international waters. The development of regional prosecution centers aimed to streamline piracy trials. Kenya and other countries established special courts to handle piracy cases. Human rights concerns complicate piracy prosecutions. Captured pirates particularly young men forced into piracy, may qualify for protection under international law. Technological solution. Modern technology offers new tools for combating piracy. Satellite surveillance, drone patrols, and improved communications all help protect shipping. Satellite tracking systems allow continuous monitoring of ship movements. Authorities can detect unusual patterns that might indicate pirate attacks. Unmanned aerial vehicles patrol dangerous waters and provide real-time intelligence. Drones can observe pirate activities without putting personnel at risk. Improved ship communications enable rapid response to piracy incidents. Distress signals can reach naval forces within minutes of an attack. Some ships now carry non-lethal weapons, like water cannons and sonic devices to repel pirate attacks. These systems provide protection without escalating violence. The decline of Somali piracy. International naval patrols and improved ship security dramatically reduced Somali piracy after 2012. The combination of military pressure and legal prosecutions proved effective. The establishment of a functioning Somali government helped reduce piracy from Somali waters. Improved coastal security made it harder for pirates to operate freely. Alternative economic opportunities reduced the appeal of piracy for many Somalis. Development programs provided legitimate employment for potential pirates. The prosecution of pirate leaders disrupted criminal networks. Key organizers were captured and sentenced to long prison terms. However, the underlying conditions that created Somali piracy remain largely unchanged. Poverty and lack of opportunities could lead to renewed piracy if security measures are relaxed. Contemporary piracy hotspots. While Somali piracy declined, other regions experienced increased pirate activity. The Gulf of Guinea, Caribbean, and Southeast Asia all saw rising piracy incidents. West African piracy, particularly in Nigerian waters, became a major concern. Pirates in this region often target oil tankers and petroleum installations. Caribbean piracy has resurged with drug trafficking and political instability. Modern Caribbean pirates often combine traditional robbery with drug smuggling. Southeast Asian piracy continues with regular incidents in Indonesian and Philippine waters. These attacks typically involve robbery rather than kidnapping for ransom. The expansion of global shipping creates new opportunities for piracy. As trade routes develop, pirates adapt their operations to exploit new vulnerabilities. Cyber piracy and maritime security. Modern piracy increasingly involves cyber attacks on shipping systems. Pirates can hack navigation systems, communication equipment, and port facilities. Cyber attacks can disable ship systems or provide intelligence for physical attacks. Pirates use stolen information to identify valuable targets and plan operations. Port security systems are vulnerable to cyber attacks that can disrupt operations or provide access to criminal networks. The integration of ship systems with internet communications creates new vulnerabilities. Modern vessels depend on digital systems that can be compromised. Protecting against cyber piracy requires different skills and technologies than traditional maritime security. Navies and shipping companies must develop new capabilities. The cultural legacy of piracy. Pirates in popular culture. The romanticization of piracy began even while pirates were still active. Literature, theater, and folk songs transformed brutal criminals into romantic heroes. Daniel Defoe's A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724, established many pirate legends. This book mixed fact with fiction and created lasting myths about pirate life. The image of pirates as freedom-loving rebels appealed to people living under oppressive governments. Pirates represented escape from social constraints and authority. Treasure Island, by Robert Louis Stevenson, cemented the modern image of pirates. Long John Silver became the archetypal pirate character in popular imagination. Hollywood films from the 1930s onward portrayed pirates as swashbuckling adventurers. These movies emphasized romance and adventure while ignoring the brutal reality of historical piracy. Pirate symbols and iconography. The Jolly Roger became the universal symbol of piracy. Different pirate captains used variations of the skull and crossbones design to identify their ships. Pirate imagery influences modern culture, from fashion to corporate logos. The skull and crossbones represents rebellion and nonconformity in contemporary society. Pirates' clothing styles have become iconic costume elements. Tricorn hats, eye patches, and peg legs are instantly recognizable as pirate accessories. The parrot on the shoulder image comes from Treasure Island rather than historical reality. Few historical pirates actually kept parrots as pets. Modern pirate festivals and reenactments celebrate romanticized versions of pirate culture. These events focus on adventure and freedom while avoiding historical realities. Pirates and political thought. Pirate societies influenced Enlightenment ideas about democracy and social contracts. Some philosophers cited pirate codes as examples of natural democracy. The democratic elements of pirate organization challenged traditional concepts of authority. Pirates elected their leaders and shared decision-making power. Pirate compensation systems provided early examples of social welfare. Injured pirates received payment from collective resources, showing concern for individual welfare. Some modern political movements have adopted pirate symbolism and ideology. The Pirate Party movement uses pirate imagery to represent digital freedom and transparency. Historical pirates' rejection of national authority appeals to libertarian and anarchist political philosophies. Piracy and maritime law. The legal concept of piracy as a crime against all humanity emerged from historical experience. This principle continues to influence modern international law. Universal jurisdiction for piracy cases established precedents for international criminal law. Modern courts can try pirates regardless of their nationality or the location of their crimes. The development of admiralty courts created specialized legal systems for maritime crimes. These courts continue to handle piracy cases today. International cooperation against historical piracy provided models for modern law enforcement. Contemporary anti-piracy efforts build on these historical precedents. The legal definition of piracy has evolved to include modern forms of maritime crime. Current laws cover hijacking, hostage-taking, and other criminal activities at sea. Economic impact and maritime insurance. Historical piracy led to the development of modern maritime insurance. Lloyd's of London and other insurers created policies to protect against pirate attacks. Insurance premiums reflected piracy risks in different regions and time periods. Areas with active pirates paid higher rates for shipping insurance. The economic impact of historical piracy was enormous. Trade routes were abandoned, goods became more expensive, and entire industries suffered losses. Modern piracy continues to affect global trade costs. Insurance premiums, security measures, and naval patrols all increase shipping expenses. The economic analysis of piracy shows how criminal activity can disrupt entire economic systems. Historical examples inform modern understanding of maritime security costs. Archaeological evidence. Underwater archaeology has revealed new information about historical piracy. Shipwrecks provide evidence about pirate vessels, weapons, and daily life. The Whydah, Samuel Bellamy's flagship, was discovered off Cape Cod in 19... This wreck provided the first confirmed pirate ship archaeological site. Artifacts from pirate wrecks include weapons, coins, jewelry, and personal items. These objects provide insights into pirate culture and economics. Port Royal's ruins preserve evidence of the pirate haven's daily life. Archaeological excavations have revealed buildings, artifacts, and human remains. Pirate artifacts in museums help educate the public about historical piracy. These displays separate fact from fiction in popular understanding. Final thoughts. Pirates represent the eternal human tension between order and chaos, law and freedom, security and adventure. They embodied both the best and worst of human nature. The complete history of piracy spans over 3,000 years and touches every ocean. From ancient Mediterranean raiders to modern Somali hijackers, pirates have adapted to changing times while maintaining their essential character. Pirates succeeded when legitimate authority failed. They filled power vacuums and provided alternatives to established systems. Their success reflected the weaknesses of the societies they attacked. The romantic image of pirates persists because it represents values we admire even when we disapprove of their methods. Freedom, equality, adventure, and resistance to oppression remain powerful ideals. Understanding piracy requires recognizing both its appeal and its costs. Pirates created their own societies but destroyed others. They represented freedom but denied it to their victims. The history of piracy is ultimately a human story. It reveals how people respond to oppression, opportunity, and desperation. Pirates were neither heroes nor simple criminals, but complex individuals facing difficult choices. As long as there are ships on the sea and inequality on land, some form of piracy will probably continue. The challenge for modern society is to address the conditions that create pirates while protecting innocent people from their predations. The depths of the Caribbean Sea still hold the remains of ships that once struck terror into merchants' hearts. But now they serve as reminders of a vanished world where men and women could choose the dangerous freedom of life beyond the law. Their stories continue to capture our imagination even as we recognize the tragedy and suffering they caused. The complete history of pirates is a tale of human ambition, desperation, courage, and cruelty. It reminds us that the choice between order and chaos, law and freedom, remains as relevant today as it was 3,000 years ago when the first pirates sailed into history. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, you can dream of distant shores and sailing ships, of buried treasure and forgotten islands. But remember that behind every skull and crossbones flag lies a human story of choices made and consequences faced in the endless struggle between civilization and the wild freedom of the sea. The story of piracy is complete, but its legacy lives on in the depths of our imagination and the currents of our history. Sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with adventure rather than the harsh realities of life on the account.